Darik. Is it really just me?
It's just the two. Well, no.
We got Leah.
Yep, Leah's here.
I know Jacob's on his way back.
Is he?
Oh.
We should just sit in the conference room and.
I was kind of excited. What was it again? House hacking?
Yeah, house hacking.
I thought that sounded cool.
There, I'm gonna move it over there so that you don't just look at the side of my face.
Oh, yeah. Front's a little nicer to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I guess we'll see if anybody shows up. See, I still got my sunglasses.
Oh, let me tell you. I haven't taken mine out of the package yet.
Oh, sure you didn't.
I haven't tried them on yet. Oh, look, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, they look cool.
Oh, there's a little sticker. Oh, they're even UV protected. You know, I
like this and go mask and glasses. So
yeah. Well, you got to put on the KW one, Darik.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. You know, Darik, I can see you cruising along with the convertible top down with that mask and glasses on.
That's exactly what I do.
Yep, I can see it now.
It is. So.
Well, we'll give it a few minutes, and you don't have to do this just for me.
I was gonna say I'm gonna mute it so that Leah and I can talk, but
I can't hear your guys' conversation.
Sure, you can. It would be less weird if you just came over here and came in the room with us, though.
That would be a little less weird.
All right.
All right, nope, mute it, and then we'll see if anyone else comes on, and then if not, maybe we can just talk another time.
Yes, sounds
awesome.
Good. There we go. Okay. Hi, Jacob. We're just waiting for a couple people, okay?
All good, no worries.
All right.
FYI, if you can't see me on the video, I am still listening, just like working on whatever off to the side.
And I may eat Jimmy John's in front of all of you.
When I stop talking, that will mean that my Chipotle order has arrived. So, so that we have full transparency.
Got it.
This is kind of a cool perspective that we're just like hanging out right behind the desserts, though. That's pretty fun.
That is kind of. We could just leave both doors open.
Oh, look, they're twins from the back too. Right, they're right there.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Well, all right, I'm gonna close my door. So the fun thing is I'm like super unprepared for today's conversation. So that might make it even a little bit more interesting here today because because I got busy with some other stuff. And I guess I kind of thought maybe we would have more of a conversation about it and go from there. So the idea of house hacking, it's not my term. I don't know where it came from. Really involves like, or maybe it originated in a place, at least I've heard about it the most, in places like San Francisco, where the prices are extremely high and the cost of living is just extremely high. So like a younger single person will be faced with potentially needing to find some place to live. They purchase like a house for like $1.5 million, and they have like a $8,000 a monthly obligation, and it's just extremely expensive. And while they might make enough money to make it work, it just doesn't make sense for them. So what they do is they're buying like older homes, and they'll take their older home and start renting out room by room. And so they'll have a 4-bedroom home that they have 5 people or maybe even more people actually living in, because they'll rent out each of the bedrooms individually, and then maybe the owner has a spot in the like in the dining room or something like that, and then they all share the living room and kitchen and bathroom and such. So that's kind of at least where I heard about it first, was that, and this concept of co-living. And for our purposes here in Minneapolis or the metro area, that might be pretty different from what we've heard of for a lot of people. And I mean, it certainly is uncommon, or just isn't the way that we typically do things. And yet I think that if you broaden it out a little bit, and maybe there are different ways that either we could do it as owners, or maybe you can buy it and your kids do that, or maybe you can just develop a whole different way of doing it, so that it's the same concept, just different from what it is. So my closest example that I have is one of my good buddies from high school. I sold him a house in like 2002 or maybe 2001 even. And he was a single guy then. And he was always like the guy that like was setting up everything for all of our friends. Like he was the one that ran the softball team and like did all the intramural sports and stuff. And like he was always just like the glue that holds everybody together. And so he bought this house, or I sold him this house in New Hope, right behind the New Hope bowling alley on Rockford Road or 42nd. And he bought it, and the day that he moved in, he had 3 of our other buddies move in with him. And Daryl's my buddy. His, you know, his monthly mortgage payment was probably like $1,100 or something like that. And his, he was charging $400 a month in rent to each of the other roommates. And they were like thrilled about it. And at one point in time, he even had one of our buddies move into a room in the basement that wasn't even a bedroom. So he was pulling in like $1,600 a month for a home that he lives in and he owns. And these guys are all in there, like basically paying for Daryl to live. And it was pretty awesome. And like, we laughed about it at the time. And yet Daryl is like basically just shoveling money away and like saving a lot of his money that he earned, and was able to live a lifestyle that he wouldn't have been capable of without doing something like that. Basically, without having a housing expense, he wouldn't have been able to live that lifestyle. And by that, I mean, he bought like a brand new boat and, you know, stuff like that, fun stuff that as a 24 or 5-year-old guy, you know, it's not super attainable for a lot of people. And he was working at the grocery store at that time, like, and still does, but like just, it was able to provide him with something that was completely different. So what I've been like turning around in my head has been an idea of, I mean, certainly we've talked about in the past, like buying a duplex and living in half and renting out half. And that's certainly a possibility. For people that are used to living single family lifestyles, it might not be the lifestyle that they're after. And yet I think there's still some opportunity, especially with what Minneapolis has done with their 2040 plan and allowing more density in the houses in Minneapolis or in the neighborhoods, which the 2040 plan in Minneapolis basically says that that any property within Minneapolis is allowed to have up to 3 living units in the property. And that's like a gross generalization. And that's basic, that's like the basic part of it. So it doesn't have to be zoned as a triplex to allow 3 units on the property.
That's every house in Minneapolis?
I believe so.
Really?
Jacob, do you know anything about that? No? Okay. So yeah, it's at least as far as I know, and the reason I say that is because it could apply to only homes that are like within a certain distance of downtown, but I would have heard about that, and I just don't recall that. So before the zoning had it was a requirement that for zoning purposes, like a vast majority of Minneapolis, or a lot of Minneapolis, is all zoned as like you could have a duplex on residential property, or like the single family zoning allowed for duplexes, and you couldn't have triplexes or apartments. And now it allows triplexes throughout the majority of Minneapolis. And then they've also got like more dense areas like that they went through and put in buffers of multifamily between what was once like more commercial areas. So they have like these multifamily buffers in between the commercial areas and the single family areas, so that it just provides more density. They also got rid of the off-street parking requirements, assuming that people were going to become more dependent on transit and bike and you know, anything else. So certainly it's maybe more applicable in areas that are close to either the transit or even just the you know, within biking distance of downtown or whatever. But I know it's something that we're looking into with our duplex, that kind of just a different way of doing the same thing, but something that we're looking into. What that got me thinking about, though, was that because we we looked at our existing duplex that has unfinished space in the attic, and we've talked about finishing that off or creating a third unit. And we talked about maybe even living in that unit ourselves, which is horrifying, because there's college students that live downstairs. And the reason we talked about it was because by doing that, we would reduce our cost of living to basically whatever the cost of finishing out the unit would be. So we were figuring probably $75,000 to finish out the upper level unit. And we figured that would probably be it. A big thing that keeps us away from doing that is lack of available parking. And I mean, that kind of kills it for us, but and it's also just not the lifestyle we want, even though it could be free. And free would be pretty cool, just because it would allow us to just do a lot more travel wise, and not having a living expense would be something kind of crazy. So, that was kind of like what we thought of first. And then, the next, the evolution of that was, what if we purpose built a property in Minneapolis where we were able to basically build the exact structure we wanted, whether that is a duplex or maybe it's a triplex, and build it in such a way that it wouldn't matter who's living on the other side of that wall. We can construct it in a way that's, staggered and with the garage and stuff, and just purpose build this. And that's something we're still kind of kicking around the idea of. It's certainly a challenge to find the right lot that can go on, but something that we've been kind of toying around with, and in a way that we could do it where we wouldn't have a living expense or a greatly diminished living expense. So that's something else that we've been kind of kicking the idea around on. Do you guys have any thoughts on the concept of house hacking?
I'll just say I'm impressed. I mean, I just think about my wife and everything. I'm impressed that you and Tara would be up for that, right? That's one of the things I think is interesting, of going, what am I doing this for? And then you said things like, that's not really the lifestyle I want, right? So there's that balance there of, you can get more revenue, that being the case, and do you want that to be the lifestyle that you're in?
Right. Well, and I think that's where, I could rent out my condo right now and put my crap in a backpack and probably make it around the world 5 times in the next 2 years if I really wanted to, and live I'll say a bum, I don't know, live a pretty frugal life, and I could probably make it. And yet, that just isn't the lifestyle that I want, and it's not the sleeping accommodations I want, and that type of thing. And that's where I think trying to come up with that concept that would work, that that's kind of it's interesting thing. Actually, an interesting idea is, I don't know, Kevin, and I don't know if you guys know about Ben and Alex's house. It's a big house. Yeah. And a house like that could certainly be a house that, if you wanted to, you could definitely have separate living arrangements in that house. Mm-hmm. And other than running into people outside or whatnot, you wouldn't have to even like interact with the other people or persons or you know, whatever. Like it's definitely possible, especially how that one's laid out, like just like the layout and such, you could get away with it. So certainly like a walkout house or a walkout style house does have some things like which, like, you know, in the suburbs it can be done. We looked at a house in Plymouth, actually no, in Golden Valley, that had like an in-law type suite with it had a walkway that went down the side of the house and went back to a living unit that was on the back side of the house. And in the suburbs it can get a little tricky because of the parking, and like people almost have to have cars to be in the suburbs. Like it's almost a requirement, and so they have to have a car, then they have to have a parking space. And you know, does that need to be inside or in a garage or something like that? So I mean, those are limitations on what can be done. And I think certainly in Minneapolis, there's, you know, no problem with having cars on the street. And then along with that, you also don't have, you know, there's a possibility where people might be able to live without having a car. So I don't know, it's something else to kind of consider.
Yeah.
It's really quite cool and seems like an awesome idea for someone younger, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and that is I think a great way to maybe not even so much buy all the fun stuff, but
Right.
put it away and save for your next property.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, certainly. I mean, and for sure, for somebody like looking to take that next step or do another, or, you know, add to their portfolio or whatever. I mean, that's a great way to do it. And I mean, potentially use owner occupied financing to do it too. So I mean, if you could do that and get into a property with 3.5% down or 5% down, I don't know what conventional would require, but I mean, that's crazy, and like a fantastic way to get into a property. And probably we were looking at it as a way to buy a much more expensive property and not have to pay for it ourselves, because whether it's an inexpensive property or an expensive property, the extremely powerful part about it is the amortization schedule, and that you are systematically paying down principal month by month by month. And you know, 30 years later, all of a sudden you own this thing, and it's worth it should be worth 4 times what you paid for it, at least double what you paid for it, and you've got it, you own it free and clear. So that's just the power, or should be the power, of the amortization schedule. So that's where when we were looking at it, we certainly were trying to devise a way that we could build a property that we really would want to live in, that other people would pay for. So.
Is your house that you have listed on James right now, was that originally a single family home?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if it was or it wasn't. I mean, it's kind of funny because most of the older houses like that, if they were built that way, they have like a grand staircase. And this doesn't. The staircase that goes up to the upper level is like back through the kitchen and through the back porch or off of the back porch. And so I kind of don't think it was originally as a single family home. It could have been, though. I guess I don't know.
And could that be turned into a 3, right? Isn't that what it says in the listing?
So yeah, it's listed as a duplex, and it when he bought it, the guy I sold it to, the person before him had used it as like a triplex at one point in time, and the third, like the third living unit was like it didn't have a kitchen, it had its own bathroom, so it like had its own bathroom and bedroom, and it was almost more like a lock off, like where somebody, it's basically a place to sleep. So probably more of like a transient type person, somebody who wasn't going to stay for too long. But the upper level unit in that house is pretty nice. The main level is nice too, but the upper level is, for a secondary living area, that it's a pretty cool thing. And I don't know why my guy never like fully utilized it, because for a guy that was short on money, like he could have rented that out and had, I don't know, $1,400 of income a month or $1,200 of income a month, and not had to do anything. So.
And he never did.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool place.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a, well, and it's a, it would be a great house to do something like that in, because it's a cool property, and like there's enough character there that it would make it worth your while to live there too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. I just want to get back to the idea of like a purpose-built structure too, because I think that at least that's one thing that I've, like a rabbit hole that I've gone down a little bit and already, but I do think that there's some possibility with that. And probably one of the more appealing parts of it is that you have the chance when you're building something to choose how it's all going to come together. And actually I sold a property last summer that was, it's in the Linden Hills area, just south of Lake Calhoun, and like just south of Minnetonka Club. And that property ended up being torn down, but it was on a 100-foot wide lot. I think it was a 100-foot wide lot, and which is really big for Minneapolis. But then it also had an alley access on the backside, and because of the alley, you could build something there that ended up being almost more like a townhome.
Kind of a tiny house?
What's that?
Kind of a tiny house kind of concept?
I was thinking more like a townhome, like almost like a townhome in, like any townhome in Plymouth, like up in Shenandoah,
Oh, wow.
where they're literally like back to back. You could build something like that and yet make it look like a large single family house from the outside. And because it has the alley access, like you can have one access from, like one driveway from the front, one driveway from the back. Everybody has their own single family lifestyle. And yet you've now taken a lot that's probably a $400,000 lot, and you've basically, well, you have built two properties on it, and the combined value is probably, 900 or $1 million just right off the bat, just because of the way it's set up. Not to mention you can probably get, $3,500 to $4,000 in rent for something like that in that area. So the people that bought it were tearing it down, and it's a developer guy, and he was getting the approvals for that structure. So they were doing like a cool contemporary looking and like a modern looking structure and everything. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Certainly, Kevin, for your daughter, you could do something like that too, like over by the University of Minnesota. Like that's a good area for something like that. or maybe not like that, but like the house hacking concept. So
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Yeah. She messed me up a little bit because she just joined a sorority. So it messes up that rental spot, but
good
we'll
for her,
see. Yeah. Good for her.
right?
And yeah, the hack part is now I can put another person in there, right? I mean,
Yeah, right, right.
are you, are things okay in Minneapolis as far as buy-in and owning real estate?
I think so. I think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of think so. I think things are going to be a little weird for a while, and I think the actually it's kind of funny because like where the George Floyd like memorial is
Yeah.
that wasn't an area that was like necessarily super harsh, like up until and through May of this year, it was kind of just another neighborhood in South Minneapolis, and like not dangerous necessarily or
Yeah.
anything like that. And
Yeah.
I you probably couldn't you wouldn't know that something like that could happen, and then like I don't know, I don't
Yeah.
know that you could necessarily protect against it, but
Yeah.
um, I mean, it seems like homes are still selling, and we sold the listing on James, the duplex. We had 5 offers. We just accepted an offer today.
Hmm.
It took a couple of days to get there, but yeah, to have 5 offers on that property, I was kind of surprised by that.
Hmm.
And the other my other most recent home that we sold in Minneapolis was the same way. I mean, it sold. We had multiple offers, and that was in like 2 days. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And in down by the U with the way schools are going on right now, have you seen a difference in rental income or a difference in um, even being able to fill them up?
we uh, we accepted a little bit less, and like $200 a month less is what we accepted, but we had just increased the other side because they were staying by $100, so we're
Okay.
net down $100 a month on that property. And we did it because as of COVID, the interest in showings had really slowed down. And then once they announced that school was coming back and that school was going to happen this year, then we got a bunch of activity, and we just jumped on it and tried to get it, like tried to get somebody in there. We weren't going to mess around with trying to get top dollar. We just wanted to get people in there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't seem like the right time to like be really pushing hard. Like specifically in the area where our home is in Marcy Holmes, which is funny because it was just on the news last night, getting some bad pub about dangerous crime in the area and stuff. I would say our area is a little bit different because it's like half students, and then there's a decent amount of people that live in like a single family lifestyle that like just live in that neighborhood. And then there's also like a good amount of people who are probably in the first couple of years post college that live right in there. And they're it's a little bit different than like over in the kind of Como neighborhood where it's like almost all students over there. So yeah. I don't know. I guess I would kind of assume that just like Uptown, like I have no question that Uptown is going to bounce right back, and that people are still going to be pushed to that area and or drawn to that area, maybe is a better way to put it. And like just because of location and walkability to everything and where it is, like it's just, I think it's going to remain desirable, and the lakes are right there and stuff. So
yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, for us, I like when we're looking at trying to figure out a way to do this project. It as much as we might like to do something maybe more in Golden Valley or something like that with a central location that's still has a little bit more privacy or a little bit different. The rules in Minneapolis with what they're going to allow as far as density, I like that really would drive our decision.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
More than the things that they're doing around tenant background checks and all that, those kind of things.
What's that?
More than the restrictions on the tenant background checks and.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We haven't had any problem with anything like that. And I don't know, it might just be like price point or whatever that kind of filters it out or whatever. Like we just haven't had much of an issue with that. I mean, our duplex stuff, like those are $2,700 a month. So like that's a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Like that's gonna weed out a lot, like most of the quote lower income or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unless they were living as a group. That's kind of one other thing that I thought about with us potentially building a structure and co-living in it is that if we were able to do it, we would build a nice enough property that we really wouldn't have to worry about that too much, because just the price point alone is going to weed out anybody that we wouldn't want to be living with or next to. So yeah.
That makes sense.
What other questions you guys have? Any thoughts?
Do you know where I could get some more info on the whole 2040 Minneapolis thing, just to get the specific word for word on it?
If you Google it, it's there's the city of Minneapolis, actually their information online is awesome. They have a ton of information online, and their zoning and stuff is actually pretty easy to work with once you start messing around in there. But if you Google Minneapolis 2040, the comprehensive plan is a big long thing. Like it's a robust document, like 20, 30, 40 picture or pages. And they, like in the beginning, they boil it down and like kind of summarize it. And it's a good read. I haven't gotten fully into it. I mean, for what I've read, which is like the first 2 pages before I kind of got lost and started doing other stuff, I thought it was pretty good and going to be pretty clear about, what their goal is. So I started reading on their plan for our neighborhood, or that Marcy Holmes neighborhood where our duplex is. And because I had been investigating some other property in that area, and they have like a very long-term view with what they're doing with property, and like how they are visioning the neighborhood evolving. And I noticed that they had those same type of concepts for a number of different neighborhoods in Minneapolis. And as people who are interested in real estate investing, I think that would be a decent place to start if you were looking for a place that maybe has some long-term appreciation that could outperform the rest of the market just because of what they're doing with it. So might be something where you buy a property in maybe not a marginal area, but in an area that you wouldn't otherwise have interest with, just for the sole purpose of having it in the path of future development. So.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a number of them kind of around that area, and then there was I saw one on the eastern part of Minneapolis, like further down Hennepin, where Hennepin goes off into like the warehouse. I don't even know what neighborhood it is. It's kind of like over toward the state fairgrounds, almost like in that general direction. That there was some planning for that area too. So. All right. Well, on that note, I'm gonna go get my Chipotle and try not to pass out on my way there.
Thank you, Darik.
Awesome.
Thanks, Darik.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
All
for doing
right.
that, Darik.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Kevin.
Bye-bye.